Hello, this is Marko Yamashita. So I apologize for being late. I wasn't able to get home early enough. Oh my goodness! And then we got home right at the right time. Look at that! Look at that! They hit 4,700 in opening trading. I'm glad I got here just in time too. I apologize for my lateness here. Yeah, it looks like just right when we got here, AnyColor was able to gap up to um, 47 4705 at the opening bell here. So that is they jumped up 15% in opening trading here. Now there is going to be a lot of people selling down here. We're going to be seeing a lot of people exiting their positions, yeah, especially if they're like short traders, um, or people that have need to cover their initial short investments, or if they're purchasing, doing things through option trading, that kind of thing. So we're going to see that pressure here, and that's why we're seeing this second bar here going going down, but there should be well uh, well enough people that would be buying into the company here to continue that momentum upward. I mean the opening candle wick right here was 698,000 people that are, or shares that were being traded. The one that we're on right now, it had, there's over 120, 130 thousand shares being traded. So we're gonna keep an eye on this here while we move along, and again, I sincerely apologize for being late here. I was not able to get home on time to be able to start my stream properly, and I feel really bad because this is my first stream in quite a while here. So, but we are gonna keep an eye on the ticker here while we see it. What was interesting is they're let's see, where is the beginning. Okay, so beginning is right here. Okay, so what's interesting is that we we saw we did see a hold and a delay again on the share trading itself here at the opening bell. And what's interesting here is that there was not enough enough volume for them to put a full stop on trading for the entire session, and that's why we're continuing to see the shares being traded here over. Let's see here. Yeah, so opening bell, after the opening bell, there was a hold of 25 minutes at the very beginning, before trading was allowed to resume on the company, and we're seeing we're seeing a good amount of activity here now. If you look at the metrics underneath where the main action is up here. If this metric here is called the money flow oscillator here, and as you can see at the beginning of the session up until now, we have seen a push way above and sustained above the 80 bar here, which means that there's money going into the position, and it's been maintained here above on the high end, which it would typically mean it's overbought, but with the amount of action that is happening right now, that's why it's been able to sustain above this 80 line here, which typically when you have something like this happen, you have a lot of people that are buying. Upward pressure remains consistent with the amount of money and the price line that has been put in, so it keeps it above 80 here. You would start suspecting that there would be some downward pressure, because just because of how long we've seen the position being sold here. The second one here, your relative strength index, as you can see here, they've been pushed above the same bar here, and when you see all the green, that basically means that it's been there's a lot of buying here, and the upward pressure has been consistent with the signal line here. And as you see, the signal line is getting closer to where the actual strength index line is, and you start seeing these lines tighten as you see them, that everything tighten here. Pretty soon it will start to be a signal saying that it's overbought, and we'll start seeing a lot of pressure pushing down on it. Same thing with the two metrics underneath here. They're basically showing momentum and the amount of volume that is being traded here. It does look like it's being sustained, pushing across sideways here, and we're at we're at 47.95 right now for the actual share price, which I was feeling that about between 46 to 48 would be where everything's at, and if we were lucky, we may even see 5,000. But obviously, this is still a significant amount of a jump from the closing price yesterday. I mean, we're talking over 10% of a jump upwards, which is pretty positive and pretty well being maintained here as we see trade continuing on. You're gonna see a lot of this sideways action now, because we've hit the plateau there. There's just not enough momentum for it to be pushed up. And again, it would have been nice to be able to see it hit 5,000, but right now with it being at 47.95, that is pretty positive for the course here. And I mean, last day change, it's been pushed up 17%. I mean, that in itself speaks a lot. Where, you know, the report itself was just that good that they were able to get that high of a price at the very beginning at the opening bell. Um, Hang on one second here. Again, guys, I really apologize. I it's been so long since I've streamed live, and I just could not get away to get home on time for being so late for my first stream in quite a while. I mean, I don't even have my VTuber model up on screen. I apologize so much. Um, so we're gonna keep an eye on this, all right? But we're also gonna move on and get to some of the other things I wanted to talk about here. Man, this is so scuffed because I was so late getting home. Okay. Oops, that's not it. There we go. Okay. Um, if we see any more price movement I'll definitely toggle back to the screen here so we can see it here. But let's take a look at some of the other information here. Since now we're past the opening bell. On the screen here, the first one of the first things that they put out, with along with all the other metric data and the investor relations, paper documents and presentations, is the introduction of a new director candidate, Yuko. It was being brought in. What we're seeing here is we're seeing two of the existing directors retiring here, and she is basically fulfilling the same role. They're consolidating everything into the same position that she is filling in. What's interesting about this is that she is well, when she's been brought on, and as of this particular announcement, she does not currently own any shares, and she's currently not an active shareholder being brought in here, and that's as of April 30th. We can probably expect her that she could be presented with the opportunity to hold shares here after the general meeting of the shareholders that happens here in July. But as of her being brought in here, there's no conflict of interest of her coming in and fulfilling this role here. The good thing about this is that when you have the consolidation of directors into one position, you're basically eliminating a lot of overhead, which is positive for the company itself as far as reimbursements to the directors. Obviously, Riku and the other director, board members, and executive officers do hold positions in the company itself. But she's currently not holding. Whether or not she gets a significant amount of shares for her involvement with being in the board of directors remains to be seen. But allowing two positions here on the director board being consolidated does actually benefit the company as far as overhead. Now we also see with her position here, she is part of the audit and supervisory committee. that basically has to deal with all the financial stuff. This is along the lines of what we saw with Cover Corporation, bringing in the three outside director positions last year, because they had the FTC issue that came about of them being audited. For AnyColor already had these positions on hand, and they already had an audit team in place. With the two people here that are retiring, and then her her position being consolidated into one position here, basically says that they brought in someone with experience, as we can see with her career summary, all the way back from April 2002. She joined the NEC Corporation. Then she worked in some other positions here, and then she what I believe she went into, where is it here? Yeah, she was with the Poppin Sitter Corporation Limited here, for a good long time. Matter of fact, they were originally called Smart Sitter Inc. And she held that position for quite a while before signing on with the Grace Group, and then being an outside director for AnyColor. So they're bringing in experience to bring this consolidation of two director positions into one, bringing in that amount of experience, all that, with her working in the relations here since 2002 is pretty significant. There has not been any changes in directors and executive officers, as opposed to like what positions or what departments are in their purview. I was kind of thinking when I saw this, perhaps they were going to break it down, or reorganize themselves, but it looks like they are otherwise happy with the director positions, and who has purview over each specific facet of the company. Whereas when we saw with Cover Corporation, they reorganized and then had the directors assume positions with specific areas here. So there's no reorganization, as opposed to when we saw with Cover Corporation. So let's move on here to the notice regarding dividends from retained earnings. Just want to check it. Yeah, they're still pushed. We're likely going to see them trade sideways here after the initial push. There's probably going to be this consistency here of being traded sideways, and that's fine. With I would have liked to see it hit 5,000, but we'll talk about that a little bit later here. But the gap up here did happen, and now it's trading sideways here at plus 17%, which for as good that as they did in their Q4, I would be more than happy to see that. So we're probably going to see the pressure either being sustained here, or it could start dipping down with whether or not there are people out there that haven't exited their positions that want to do so now that everything has leveled out here. But we'll keep an eye on here. Right now we're still at plus 17, which is really nice. It's really good to see the company here being rewarded for their their strong finish to the 2025 year. So let's look at the next notice here real quick. And I need to grab my drink. Okay, so retained earnings here. Basically, what they're talking about here, and I'll show you on the chart here in a second when we come back to it. There was that investor slide that had the breakdown of what they wanted to do with their net revenue after all the taxes and everyone else has been paid, that kind of thing. This is basically a declaration that that they are going to continue paying dividends, and there was not a announcement stating that they were going to do a stock buyback, which in my opinion is much more appropriate with the amount of volume and the amount of shares with the that are currently being held by the company. If they were to do a stock buyback right now, that would further erode away at the liquidity of the company in itself. So they're pretty happy with the amount of shares that are currently in circulation here. So that's why they're not doing the stock buyback program, and that they're just going to continue with dividends here. What we see here with the total dividend amount of 1.9 million yen. Actually, I'm sorry, 1.9 billion yen over the next year. That's basically what is coming out of the cash pool that is part of the free cash flow that exists after everything has already been taken out of the amount that is remaining. And what I mean by that is, after everyone's been paid, after all salaries have been paid, after all the bills have been paid, and you have what's left over. Out of that amount, they are taking 1.9 billion over the next year and paying out dividends to shareholders. And this is actually a really good thing, and I'll show you here right now with the slide here. I gotta drop that one down. Why is that not showing? Okay, there. We'll look at here. Okay, so when we go into our financial section here, and we go into our balance sheet, well, we see here with the total equity here, which is after all the things that out of everyone getting paid, out paying everyone's salary, after paying all the bills, we can look at the shareholder equity. And as we can see here, shareholder equity basically represents the value of the shareholders' equity belonging to the common shares, and there's no preferred shares, so they're all common shares. And what this means is this is the value of all the shares that are owned and held by the public, or by holding companies, or the ones that are out there that have already been bought. And there's a certain there's a certain value that goes with those the common shares, where, like, if the company ended up going bankrupt and they had to liquidate everything, there would be a certain amount of money that's left after they liquidate everything to pay for the bills that are outstanding. and then that this is, would be basically like what's left that would be the shareholders would be able to get out of the shares that they had bought and they were holding. So what we see here is we have retained earnings here, and the retained earnings represents the accumulated residual earnings of the company since inception that has not been distributed to shareholders or not allocated to a specific reserve or purpose. So this is basically kind of like when you have your savings account and you have money left over from paying bills with your paycheck, that kind of thing. You're just kind of squirreling it away for a rainy day. That's what this number is here. And basically, what we see here is if you start seeing that your retained earnings start going down significantly, that means that there's more money going out of the company than is being brought in. And what we see with the return earnings here since inception here with the 2022 here when they went public, all the way up till this past quarter, we have been able to see that AnyColor has been able to consistently put money in here. And then when we get to Q1 of 24 here, that's when they start saying, okay, we're going to start giving some of this money back to the shareholders, because we have this much in here. We have 19 billion yen in the savings account. Instead of holding their money and not giving them anything back for being a shareholder, that they were going to start doing that. And that's why we start seeing this significant drop here, because they start doing, this is partly the stock buyback purchases. You have the dividends that have been paid out throughout last year. That's what all this is about. And as we can see with Q1 here, they started all that, right? There's over 8 billion that they have been that they have paid out, and they started doing that, and we see it go down from 11, but then by the end of the calendar year, or I'm sorry, the fiscal year, we're back up to 18 billion within the retained earnings from this past year. And that basically means that they were able to bring in more than what they were paying out to the shareholders through dividends and the stock buyback from the past year, that they've been able to get back up to this 18.7 billion yen and retained earnings. Now, what they could do with a lot of this stuff, with those earnings that are being retained, they can continue giving back to the shareholders, or like they can allocate that money towards, and we'll see that slide here once we start covering the investor relations information. That they can use it for acquisitions and mergers if they're able to bring in like a second company that they buy and they merge with, or they're able to put up the money to be able to buy enough share within the company to bring them into the fold, that kind of thing. That gives them a lot of room to be able to maneuver for this coming year. And as we saw with Cover Corporation, there's a lot of uncertainty that's out there, and AnyColor isn't taking on any of those massive projects that Cover is doing, and why we see their numbers shrinking, why we're seeing their expenses getting larger. AnyColor is taking things in a completely different direction. So we're actually starting to see that split between where AnyColor is going and where NIJISANJI is going versus what Cover Corporation and Hololive is doing, and that split is actually being shown within the share price numbers, and the reason why we see one company spending way more than they're earning, and the other company giving back to their shareholders while they're moving forward with their vision. So it's a really interesting thing that is happening here going into 2026, because we're starting to see the clash between two different visions of Cover Corporation and what they're doing versus NIJISANJI and where they want to take things. And I know that there's been a lot of buzz about what's happening with the EN branch, and we'll be talking about that in a bit. But I want you guys to see the fact that last year we had like Lydia and everyone else saying, oh, they wasted $56 million or stuff like that. And the fact of it is, they gave all that money back to the shareholders that that had invested in the company over that past year, and over the same year they have been able to raise the amount of money that is being given to their VTubers, and they've been able to refill that cash pool. So if they have anything that comes up this next year where they need cash to be able to pay the bills, that money is going to be there, which is a good thing. One of the reasons why we see this dip here in Q1 and Q2, and then we start seeing that this money being returned into the retained earnings, is because they had to invest a good amount of money into hiring staff for their warehouse. Their whole shipping process was out of whack. There was all this backlog of things that were bought that hadn't been shipped out yet. That kind of thing. They had to hire people. That's what this money is for, and that's why you see these dips happen here, because it's being spent up here in the liabilities. And as we see here with total liabilities, that their total liabilities in the second quarter alone went up 21%. When we look at Q3, it went up in Q3 by 24%. If you look at Q4 here, liabilities that, obligations that they had to pay went up for a third time to a total of 33%. I mean, these are things that that this money is there for, and yet they've been able to continue pooling everything in here to bring it back up to it being higher than back in the end of last year's fiscal quarter. So we might see them do some other stuff with this money here. It really depends on how comfortable they feel with where the company is at, and why people like me that hold shares. I'm going to show you this a little bit later on, but the price right now is at $47.90. All right. When I bought it, I have doubled my investment from the last time I have put money in to buy more shares for the company. I mean, I basically, could cash that stuff out now and say, okay, I doubled my money. I'm happy with where everything's at. Okay, I'm just gonna cash out. But I haven't cashed out yet. And one of the reasons why I haven't cashed out is because when the last time that they did a stock split, or they started talking about what they want to do with this money and with the shareholders for the coming year, they didn't start talking about that stuff till July. There was some lead in with that kind of talk, but they in July they do their annual shareholder meeting. They haven't done it yet. That's happening in July. I want to see what they're going to be talking about when that happens, because AnyColor has been able to show that they've been able to maintain their price point at where at the levels that it's been now. Um, Basically ever since they hit 4,000, they've been able to maintain it there. And there has not been those investors that have been playing it short. And the amount of short traders that have been here at trading at AnyColor has been drastically smaller than what we've seen with Cover Corporation, which means most of the pressure of the price being bought to 4,000, those are all long traders that have long-term investments with the company. So the 790 that we're seeing right now, there's probably a mix of short trading there, option trading on the exchange, that kind of thing. But the pressure of it being pushed up at the beginning of this trading session has a significant line that you can kind of do a benchmark with and say, okay, the 790 per share, all that stuff is either people that bought new positions to hold long, or that's the beginning of where short trading had bought their shares to short trade. And then once it got up to that 790, 800, and you start getting at the 47, 48, maybe 5,000, that's when you're gonna start seeing a lot of that up and down, because you have all the shorts there that had started at 4,000. Hey guys, thank you. Konnichiwa. Gomen nasai. I was not. I scheduled everything, and then I got held up, and I was not able to get home, and I was panicking all the way home. And I apologize. For starting so late. It's been so long since I've live streamed. Again, my VTuber model hasn't even gotten put up with. I haven't even plugged in my iPhone. I am so sorry. I started late, and this has been so scuffed from the beginning. But I was able to jump on right when shares the shares on the exchange started flowing, and I'm so glad I was at least able to time it to where I could be live when the share trading started happening. So thank you so much for waiting, guys. I really apologize. Umberto, welcome. Good to see you too, my friend. And again, thank you all the rest of the people that decided to drop in here because of me being so late to streaming. I am so sorry. I feel so bad that I scheduled it and then I got occupied and I could not get away from it, and I was so late. All right, so let's look back at some of the other stuff. See, there's my model. I was able to put my model, but I haven't been able to get my phone to work with it. I'm just gonna take myself off the screen here, and let's get this one back up. Okay, so so we talked about the dividend payment here. That this is a good sign that if they're declaring dividend payments for this coming year, they're comfortable with the fact that they could pay out 2 billion yen over the next year, and feel confident that they're able to pay this much out, and it's not going to be like detrimental towards the bottom line or anything like that. When I was looking at the dividend yield, how much the dividend is against what the retained earnings are, it's like barely 2% of what they anticipate over the next year. So, I mean, it's a very low number, but at the same time, you're at least getting more money back for being a shareholder for AnyColor than what you would get for Cover Corporation. So, I mean, that being an incentive there, is why we see so many long traders buying into the company, and the short traders are the people that are trading that Cover Corporation. So let's move on here, and I want to show you guys. Let's go to the investor relations slide. It's great to be back online. I'll tell you what, my health has not been great over the last 6 months, and I miss being able to talk to people, and it feels. I feel so disconnected just doing videos, and that's why it takes me so long to put my videos up, because there's so much I want to say that I haven't been able to say because I haven't been able to stream, that I end up talking so much with my material for the videos. I have to go through like half an hour of material just to do a 4 minute video, and it's like so I was, when I got home, I was not feeling well just when I got home, and I was like, well, maybe I should just cancel it, but I wanted to jump on, at least talk about this stuff a little bit. Okay, so financial results for this year. Okay. Um, as we see here with the first slide here, the first slide is a very strong statement where the revenue was 13.9 billion for Q4, and that is a 1 billion higher than what the outlook was for the forecast. Um, as I've mentioned in the videos, that they need a certain amount of net profit here in order to meet the expectations for all of these, the outlook and the forecast and everything else, which they've been able to hit. And the interesting thing is here that there is a their net profit margin is 28%. And when we look at this compared to Cover Corporation, they're at 13%. There is one person, and we'll we'll talk a little bit about the video that released here. I had things go public live on a timer here, and I had that one video that I had done that I had not been able to get up before yesterday, and so I put it on a timer to release here today, and I'll talk about that in a little bit as well. As long as I can keep my strength up here. So I know there's been a lot of talk about the live streaming and the super chat money, and people paying for memberships, and how the aunties out there, they have been talking trash about this. Continued membership-driven profit structure leading to a stable results. This it is actually a kind of a three-pronged approach, because you have the live streaming, right, and then you have the associated super chats and memberships to people's um, channels. But when you start looking at like several of the JP branch members, that they, in lieu of doing a membership type of thing for them on YouTube, they have a separate member fan club that is held outside of YouTube, that you have people subscribing to, and they're doing that differently than what a lot of the other people do on YouTube, right? And when they do it that way, that money is still being shown here within the live streaming profits, but it's counted differently than the statistics that we see the other people trying to use to poke fun at AnyColor, because that money is not being counted in with the V stats that are being pulled by the blogger that has been posting that. So the fact that this number is so small, it also is represented that they are not using or expecting more than what they're bringing in now, and they're comfortable with that because they're bringing in money in a different way, which is basically our next topic here, which is the commerce. They've been just hitting it out of the park with the commerce, and what the thing that we have to remember as English speaking people that are looking in, is that the 9.3 billion that is being represented here, only about 4% of that is the EN branch, and they have a they kind of have it rough right now, because most commerce, even if you were to work for Hololive, their commerce is focused mainly in Japan, that is being shipped out. And as I've demonstrated with Cover Corporation, I mean, you're basically paying for what you're buying twice, just trying to get shipped to you. And neither company really has a solid solution for people outside of Japan, which is why when AnyColor said, you know what, we're going to double down and we're going to, focus on commerce in Japan, it makes so much more sense, because you're looking at a demographic that isn't paying so much just to try to get those materials and those merchandise to the people who are buying. So they're relying less on people outside of Japan for bringing in the revenue, and they're focusing more on the market where it's cheaper for the fan to be able to get that stuff shipped to them. So they're keeping it more or less in house with the company and the region that they're targeting. And what I find interesting about AnyColor is that they are looking at trying to do some different things, especially with live streaming and with the revenues that they currently have, that they would be able to have the EN branch members be more participant in, as opposed to them being focused on trying to push merchandise on the English speaking audience when it costs so much for that audience just to try to buy that merch. So there's going to be a lot of other things that they focus on. Um, as we see here on the cliff notes on the side, that you had they had the merchandise from the 7th anniversary, um, and it was immensely popular. They exceeded the expectations. Um, Merchandise for like voice work initiatives and regular sales initiatives. When them doing digital voice packs and all those other things were higher than anticipated, which is actually a good thing, because when we start talking about digital goods and commerce goods, it's there's a lower price point there, and if you are um, in the United States or part of the English speaking audience, being able to have those digital goods that you can buy, and not have to worry about paying, $50 just to buy a $30 plush doll. Um, Being able to do that, you're bringing at least something that the audience can buy into a lower price point, which can connect with them easier than trying to ship out physical goods and merchandise. Now, going along with the live streaming point, you have the events and the e-ticket sales, and also the ticket sales for online viewing, and then the Niji Festival. Those were a lot stronger than anticipated. Again, you're tapping into that e-commerce portion of things, and being able to sell an e-ticket for online viewing is very important for NIJISANJI to maintain and focus on, so they can continue to reach out towards the English audience. And as we'll see here in a bit, they actually are anticipating that, which in my mind, anyways, is drastically different than what other people are trying to say about them forgetting or keeping the EN branch down. If anything, they were looking at ways of being able to get that initiative for the EN branch and bring it to you through a digital product, and not rely so much on physical goods for them bringing in um, the amount of profit, or the amount of income that you would normally expect from a specific branch. So, mashed potato, thank you for coming in. I appreciate you. I am so sorry I had started so late. I I should not schedule appointments on the same days that I'm live streaming. I just could not get home in time. Yes, the voice packs are nifty pieces of merch, and the fact that there is quite a lot of, yeah. Yeah. There's so much hand wringing about different stuff that people are just basically trying to find anything that um, to use as a negative talking point, and people well, the people who are trying to criticize NIJISANJI have to realize, and again, I have it. I have my script and storyboard ready to start breaking this stuff down in video form. And one of the things I'm going to bring up about it is, again, we're looking at two very different companies that are taking two very different approaches to VTubers and what the ultimate goal is that they're trying to do with the companies. You have you have Yago on one side who can't decide, okay, we're a company that is not going to produce games, we're not going to develop games and compete against other people, but yet we have independent developers developing games for us that are competing with other developers. Because we're paying a third party to develop games that we're not going to develop as Cover Corporation, but we're still going to slap our label on them and claim them as our property because they're using our characters and our talent's voice and everything. But we're not trying to compete, but we're still going to put our logo all over it. It's like you're basically contracting second and third party development to develop games under your logo and your name. So it's like it's no different. What's the difference? You're basically just giving money to other companies to do your development for you, but yet you keep saying that you don't want to compete against other companies, but you want to hire companies to compete against those companies on your behalf. It's so silly the way that they try to frame it. But with the way that they are trying to do things with AnyColor is drastically different, and they are very much focused more on the music and the pushing out of digital products and digital voice packs, getting music videos put out there. It's a completely different product that AnyColor is trying to put out there. So we're basically we're comparing two companies that are VTuber companies, but that's pretty much where we start seeing the divergence, because you have Cover that's trying to focus on four different things at the same time, and then you have Riku on this side who is saying, okay, we know it costs a lot of money for people to try to buy our products that are outside the United States. How can we give money? How can we give them a product where they can buy into it because they want to, and not spend, $80, $90, $100 just to try to ship those things to them? How can we get that to them at a cheaper cost and rate so they can still enjoy it? And that's what we're gonna see here from AnyColor this year, is they're focusing more on e-commerce that allows the EN branch to still be able to reach out to their audience, but it's in a different way. It's not, you're gonna see them put out physical goods, but those goods are gonna be less focused on, constantly releasing new physical goods and merch every 2 months, and more of, we're celebrating our anniversary or birthday, those type of things. So we're putting out goods for that. But through the rest of the year, we want to have them produce more e-goods and e-commerce to continue to keep that reaching out to the audience. The indie initiative is actually so sus. There's so much I want to talk about that, and I ran out of time before we had to start looking at AnyColor, and I want to go back to that at a later point. So I hope that I'll be able to slot that in for being able to do a video and talk about that a little bit. but the other thing that NIJISANJI is doing and doing well, and we can see it here, especially with the Q4, is they recognize that events that are happening are a drastic drain um, on revenue in itself. You do the events to push purchasing of secondary products, and so your tickets sales are limited, and it covers the cost of holding the event. But the merchandise and the commerce, you have to have solid sales on that in order to justify doing the events that they're hosting, because the events itself, they they they, they pay for the space for them to do the event. That's it. Um, God, why do I have this so big? Um, ooh, ooh, ooh. So scuffed, so scuffed. Okay, hang on. Um, uh, uh, okay, so hang on. Let me get this better positioned on screen. There we go. There we go. Okay, that's better. Man, it feels like my first year of streaming again, because there's so much stuff happening. Um, Basically, what to say here? AnyColor is doing way better, doing business in Cover Corporation. Yeah, lost to the youngster. Well, I this reminds me of the company that put out Duke Nukem Forever, where the lead guy that was heading that project, every little shiny new thing that came out, he wanted to throw it into the game. So they end up spending like 10 years and untold amount of money just to try to get the game finished. And it feels like Yago is basically that same person who you know, oh look, they have a new Unreal Engine out there. Oh, let's do that. But no, we want to do this metaverse thing. So and we were able to get this artist that does anime, characters and everything else. Let's get him and do that. And oh, I want to have a live, always connected metaverse, because metaverse was the buzzword for the year. Let's do that. And they have so many different things that they have thrown stuff out, and money into, and then time and investment into, that they haven't really been able to complete anything with a significant amount of quality beyond it just existing. And that's why we see them overspending as much as they have. Um, Later on here in the investment material, and let's see if I can. Oh yeah, by the way, so AnyColor did allocate 400 million yen to pay the 532 employees and the livers a bonus, which when you break it down, it is about like I think it's like I think it was over 300 or I'm sorry, $3,000 per person if you break it down, doing the laws of averaging. So they gave out like about between a two to a $3,000 US dollar bonus for the year for performance and across the board for everyone who worked at AnyColor. Um, so I know I'm scrolling ahead, and we're gonna go back to all this, but I just want to find. There we go. Okay, so I know one of the questions that someone mentioned in a comment is, that they're what are they doing with the EN branch? What's going on here? If we look at the review of important policies here, that happened in 2020, 2024 to 2025, they hired more than 100 people for the company. Now, uh, some of those, a lot of people were also hired for the warehouse and to get the goods out and everything. But if we go down and we look, um, there is, where are you? Ah, there we go. Okay, so strengthening support and foundation to support the VTubers, right? The hiring of more than 100 employees throughout the fiscal year. They strengthen the production and support for VTubers. And the very first line here, what does it say right here? Talent management for JP and EN. Support daily activities for our VTubers. And this is in talent management. One of the things that they seriously had a problem with over the past year with trying to get management in a good space for the EN branch, because you can't have them working on large projects if you don't have talent management to support them and make sure that they're getting everything that they need as far as support to be able to do those projects. And people just do not understand that. And that's one of the first big flags here that they said that we saw this over last year. We're not going to make a big scene or deal about it out in the open, because you don't openly talk about the problems that that you had over the past year and say, oh, we haven't gotten to that yet to be able to fix it, and then have that as a negative talking point against your company. You just do not do that, and that's why they've always deferred the comments about what's happening with the EN branch. What are you going to do this year with the EN branch, so on and so forth. They're working on this stuff. They're trying to hire the correct people to support them. Being able to put people in the production division to strengthen the VTuber units. You have producers, production unit support, along with talent management and talent management being able to facilitate the individual, which they're trying to do here. They're trying to put a four-person individual team together to work with the VTuber. And yeah, you're not going to continuously get 4 people per VTuber and have it perfectly divvied out like that. But if you're able to, if you're able to assign a certain amount of support per talent, and you're able to organize it that way, and then ensure that you're able to get things talked up the chain of command and then brought through down to the chain of command. Being able to have 4-person teams that are identified, and you know that the structure is there, is so much better than they hired 20 EN talent, and that's scattered over 3-4 managers. but those managers are in different time zones. Remember, Selen was one of the major critics that said that, you're talking about having management in different time zones, people working in different time zones. They don't have an English or an EN branch um, solely dedicated towards working with their EN talent, because they're a Japanese company. They're operating different than what you had with Cover Corporation, and in fact, a lot of the talent that is in the EN branch live over in Japan. So they're streaming for us in the evening when it's way early morning for them, and so on and so forth. And then you have your talent that live over here too, and then your talent that live in Canada and everything else. But when you're looking at a Japanese company, and that their primary operation is out of Japan, and you don't have the satellite support in place, you're gonna get instance like what happened with Selen. So being able to reorganize and identify those shortcomings, and then work to improve them over the year, um, paints everything in a very different picture and context versus what you're gonna hear from the antis out there. Um, yeah. That they're you're gonna start hearing, you're likely gonna start hearing more about talent that is they have a different crew, or they have a different mix of production teams and so forth. You're probably gonna it for the people that are comfortable talking about that, you're probably going to hear more about that if you haven't already. So, you can't really sit there and say that they're not doing anything for the EN branch when they're bringing people in. You have to reorganize. You have to restructure. You have to be able to identify the shortcomings that happened. Yes, sweetheart. Sorry, that was my cat. um, so you have to be able to do that, and when you look at the right side here, maximize VTuber opportunities to excel. Strengthening planning, production, and sales and promotion structure. What was one of the big complaints that Selen had? That they were that she kept on having problems with planning and production, and promotion through their manager because of the way that it was currently structured. You know, um, Reinforced structure for sales planning. Obviously you're going to have two very different models for the EN branch and the JP branch, because the JP branch is going to be focused more on commerce as opposed to um, the EN branch, which is going to be largely digital e-commerce first, and then physical commerce second. In plan a platform strategy division here, they're looking at doing activities different than what EN is doing. Hang on a second. I need my I need to get my cat comfortable hearing. He's begging for food. I didn't get a chance to feed him when I came in the door. Hang on a second. Okay. He followed me. He followed me back into the room here. He has a routine, and with me running late, we haven't been able to do the routine, and so now he's still protesting because he has a specific way. He's 16 years old, and he's had a specific routine ever since he was about 6 or 8, and we broke it today because I'm streaming, and he's not too happy about it. Okay, yeah, he's hungry. I put food out there, but he has a routine that he always goes through before he starts eating, and part of that has me out there with him. And so he wants me to go back out there, and I'm like, I can't do it because it takes 5-10 minutes for you to finish your routine. Okay, let's go back. Actually, let's look at. Ooh, um, I was just looking back at the tickers. So yeah, we're at 47.80 right now, and it's holding steady at 47.80, which is, it's dipped a little, but it hasn't dipped too significant. There you go. So we did there was some selling off here, which is expected, especially if you were holding, below 400 or 4,000 here at the beginning. But more or less, you're going to see it trading sideways here for the rest of the time here. But there was the initial upward gap here of 17%, which is a it fits within the forecast here. So right now we're at 47.85. The average that they were looking at was approximately 49.50, or close to 5,000. So it's right underneath the average of the four analysts' predictions here. But we could start seeing them issuing an upward revision, and have them raise the average price target to over 5,000 if they are able to hold it and keep it held here, where we're currently at. Because if we look at the long game here, they traded sideways here. They were at 39, then they cracked 4,000 here, coming up to the earnings report, and now they jumped all the way up here to 48. So if they're able to maintain, and we may actually see a drop off here, but we may see that drop off, and then we'll see it rise back up at the general annual general shareholder meeting. If they announce anything significant at that time, we could see another spike there. But for right now, it looks like that it's concentrated up here at 47, which is acceptable. For me, it's acceptable. So I don't anticipate having to make a decision if I'm going to sell some of my shares until July. So, but if, as long as we don't see them dip back down lower than 4,000, and they're able to close up here at 47, I will honor my agreement and donate part of my gains here to a smaller VTuber. Oh yeah, and by the way, thank you guys so much for helping me get past the 1,000. Um, I know I am mostly video producing right now, but it really does help me being able to do a more scheduled out type of release thing, at least once, twice a week. So all right, let's go back here. Let's go back. There we go. Okay. All right. So let's go back up here. And we're gonna skip some of the boring ones here. Cost breakdown here. The cost breakdown. Cost of sales ratio rose due to increases in revenue from events with relatively low profitability, which again kind of hits home that the events themselves do not generate the profits. It's more that they do, the selling of, promotion, selling of merchandise and tickets for it, but the events themselves actually cost quite a bit, and you don't see much gained off of that, and that's why Cover Corporation had such a huge amount of increase in costs, because they do multiple huge events, and they have to pay for the space and everything else. So yeah, okay. Okay, so we're at 170 VTubers as of the press release. And this is also another significant thing. I mean, there's only 35 people in the EM branch right now. The EM branch has never really been that big to begin with, and being able to re-identify what works and what is more cost efficient towards the company and for the VTuber themselves. They're able to identify those things and do everything in a efficient manner. And when we get up to the revenue by business area, we see here with the revenue by business area. Yes, baby. That live streaming, that they basically say it's remained steady, and relatively unchanged, as opposed to last year. There hasn't been a significant growth on it. They're not expecting it. They're not they're not relying or leaning more on it like Cover Core is. Cover is expecting 24% of their revenue coming out of live streaming, whereas AnyColor was only expecting, I think it was like 12 or 18%, something like that. So while membership and ad revenue have been steady against the backdrop of growth, they acknowledge that super chat money has decreased, but they're not relying on it. So the decrease in super chat money and ad revenue is expected, because it's not a huge part of what they're looking at to bring in revenue for the company. It's their revenue is commerce. It's growing, and I mean, look how much it grew compared to last year. I mean, you have a growth of about 9 billion yen over the past year of growth out of primarily commerce. And it's not just physical goods, it's e-commerce and everything else. That's why their event revenue by event is so small, because they know it costs a lot of money to do large scale events, and it just doesn't, they recognize, if we do smaller to medium sized events, as opposed to having these big huge trying to make headline type of events, You know, it's a lot more cost efficient to be able to set up, to be able to produce, and we're still able to get out what we want to get out. Um, as far as people recognizing them being who they are and discovering them, and then them following, what's happening with those people, um, by live streaming and other things. They have their own emag that they do different stuff with, as far as the fan club type thing. So I mean, there's a lot of things that are non YouTube don't have solid metrics that you can't measure to be able to put a measuring stick up from what they're doing and what Hololive is doing, and say, well, this one is doing it better, because you can't quantify those metrics because they're in completely different realms. Oh yeah, now I recognize that now the uptick in smaller events that's significant. Yeah, yeah, for individual livers are happening. Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. You hit it right on the head there, Mashed. You have smaller events that are happening, and as we look at the outlook for this coming year, what we're gonna see, and again, we also need to, people need to understand this as well. Um, AnyColor said it last year that they're not that they are, when they talk about NIJISANJI, that includes the EN branch. They're not going to sit here and say, okay, well, this is what we're going to do for the year. JP is going to do their own thing. EN is going to be doing their thing, and then have to explain it twice for each branch as they're going through this. They talk about it in broad strokes, yet they're doing, the level of what they're doing differs between the individual liver as opposed to the individual branch or brand. you know and that's why they fold it all together when they're talking in broad strokes, that you know we we don't need to say, hey, we're doing this for the EN branch, and then people come back 6 months from now and say, hey, you let the JP branch do this. How come you didn't do it with the EN branch? And it's like, well, you're talking about two different markets that you're trying to accommodate, and it's very hard to be able to try to quantify, okay, this is what we're doing in one place and this is what we're doing in another place. So talking about it together, you're able to say, okay, well, with on the home front, we're going to be doing blank, and then for for everyone in general, we're going to be doing small to medium type of events or live concerts or those types of things, or streaming, or concerts, or brand promotion. We're going to have these people doing promotion for specific brands, rather than continuously trying to talk about everything twice in in separate talk. They're bringing it all together, and they're saying, okay, this is what we're going to do as a company. That we don't want, they don't, honestly, I would rather see them talk about the EM branch in the same breath as the JP branch, because it shows unity. And we'll get to that slide here in a little bit. The a lot of the things that I complain about with Hololive, where there it seems to be this lack of unity with the brand as a whole, because they're just so big that you don't have certain interactions, or certain things planned for certain people, and then you start asking why. you know. And if you say that one person's going to do it, what's going to happen? You're going to have another person saying, well, I wanted to do it too, but they wouldn't let me. Another thing that Doki Bird said. It's like, so that's why you talk in these broader strokes, because once you start identifying people and saying that they're doing this group is doing this group is doing that, then people will start saying, well, why didn't they let the other groups do that? And that's why you talk in these broader strokes, but then you bring all those people under the same umbrella of unity, because they are NIJISANJI. They are not, you know, individual brands with underneath a main brand that are competing or looking, saying that you're shutting one brick sub brand out because you're favoring another brand. That's not what's happening here. It's painfully obvious that people are looking at Hololive Ian and completely missing the point of how much it costs for English audiences to ship these things from Japan to the United States. And they completely just, like, it doesn't matter to them. They're like, well, people are gonna buy them anyways. Okay, fine, but if you're gonna create or do create one as requests come in, and you have this order of you know 200 things, and that all those things have to get shipped out. The person that's receiving them has to pay twice just to get that to them. See, and the other thing that NIJISANJI is doing, and I didn't get a chance to talk about it in my preview, all right, but NIJISANJI also has a certain amount of things that have already been created that is sitting there in a warehouse, waiting for it to be put on shelves or people to buy them and so on and so forth. But they have things pre-made. They pre-make certain things, but they because they have these things. Actually, I'm sorry. It's Covercore. Covercore had have certain things that are pre-made, right? But they haven't been bought yet, but they're sitting in a warehouse. And Cover is putting out so many different promo commerce merch drops that this stuff gets skipped over because people are saying, oh, look at new merch. Well, I missed on that one, so I'm going to put my money down on this one. And then you have all this stuff that's pre-made, then you end up having to discount it just to try to get it out the door because it's been sitting there for so long and they haven't been able to sell it. And so they start selling these things at a loss, and that's another thing that that Cover Corporation is having a hard time with, because they're doubling down, constantly doubling down, trying to outsell themselves. And I've mentioned this before. They're competing with themselves because they're putting out more promo merchandise to try to get people to buy than what they currently have that hasn't been sold yet. So they sell things at a loss, and that's what happened in Q4. And they had all this stuff that they had to get it out the door because otherwise they would have to report it on their Q4 report. And at least they were able to sell it at a loss and get it out the door, so they would not have to account for it on their balance sheet. But they had to account for it anyways because they sold it at a loss. But it doesn't look nearly as bad because they can just categorize it as depreciated goods. It doesn't make much sense. Whereas AnyColor is doing it so much smarter for their fans, that they've been able to have these huge leaps in commerce sales. I mean, when you have, you know, the EM branch, well, the entire of Hall Life, and the supposed popularity that they have, and the JP branch of AnyColor can outsell them in commerce just in Japan, just in the Japanese market, where they're focused on. When you can have that, and you don't have to worry whether or not your EM branch is going to hit their certain benchmarks to be included in the sales figures. That really says something. It really does. It's what it says to me, anyways, is that the way that they're handling things is so different, so drastically foreign toward other people, that it's working for them. And yeah, you're not getting these big flashy numbers. However, it's functional and it works, and it supports the people who want to work for AnyColor. Cover core cannot manage inventory. Yeah. Yes. They keep billing dead stock. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's what's happening. You know. So okay, let's move on to the next slide here. Oop. Okay, so revenue by quarter. What we saw here in 2024, and then this past year at 2025. We talked about this at the very beginning of last year, before Q1, that AnyColor was going to rebalance and reorient their production and their sales production, basically their sales plan, that they were going to start off. It was going to start off small, because the Q1 is always going to be small. It always tends to be less than the rest of the year. And when we look at all the way back here to 2021, it was always the weakest quarter here. It was the weakest quarter in 2022. They started getting this off balance type of their business plan here in 2023. By 2024, they realized that they really need to rebalance things. And then you also had part of Q4 here that hadn't they weren't able to count it properly in Q4, so they had this larger than what it actually was report for Q1 of 2024. And then when people saw this number here and said, "Well, it's smaller than this. It's smaller than this. They're done. They're through. They're finished." You had over 1.9 billion yen worth of merchandise that was counted with Q1 that should have been over here, and that's why this number here underperformed, because they had such a backlog of trying to get that merch made and then out the door, that they were just severely backlogged. And we saw again the problem with the backlogging here in 2025. But the smart thing is that they took a significant amount of money and said, we need to buy this, and we need to buy the materials, the equipment, the space, and then most importantly get employees to make sure that they get their volume of commerce sales in order, so they could get it out the door quicker. Let's get into the forecast for next year. Live streaming, they're expecting it to be largely the same. Stable business and growth. based on increase in number of hours of YouTuber views through daily activities, but more importantly, they're looking at individual VTubers and planning large scale streaming events as opposed to events being you know being somewhat kind of streamed to a limited number of ticket sales, and then have people in the audience or venue. They're looking at trying to do that instead here. um, I'm assuming that it, I'm not sure how they're going to account for this, all right? Because if you're talking streaming events, you have you have an event category here. So I'm not sure. Yes, sweetheart. I'm not sure if they're going to categorize that on live streaming or event. But I mean, since they're talking about it up here, I'm assuming that they're probably going to count it up here. But we'll end up seeing, all right. But with commerce, they're going to continue the how they handle things with commerce, and increase attractive merchandise planning by incorporating unique content planning. So they're talking unique content planning, which is a lot different than, okay, look, we're dropping this merch, okay, we're dropping that merch, okay, and it's just like like I've complained about whole life over and over, merch, 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 merch. It's all starting to look all the same, how are you going to diversify the content and the commerce that you're putting out to your audience? This is how we're going to do it. We're going to put out unique stuff. We're going to try to do something a little bit different, which it would be very welcomed in my opinion, because when I look at all the merch that's coming out for the different Hololive members, it's like, okay, so let's take a survey. How many of them are going to be doing the wedding dress thing this year? Okay, how many of them are going to be doing like jewelry this year? Okay, that's okay, because so and so did it last year, so she's probably not going to do it again this year, right? Okay, so it's just like, it's basically kind of like, let's take the same ideas and then just pass it along to somebody new to for this year. And that's why I like kind of like how Crony or Crone, when it comes to her merch, it always seems like she wants to do something a little bit different, even if it's a little bit eccentric. And management looks at her funny because she wants to do something different. She doesn't want to do the same thing everyone else is doing, year in, year out, which is, I mean, I could always appreciate that. Um, instead of the doing, okay, sorry, I'm trying to get my cat to stop protesting here. Okay. um One of the other things I found interesting, when I was going through this material, is the promotion thing here, because from the info that's in this slide presentation, and I know I'm scrolling ahead here. I mean, look, um, oops, wrong one. Maybe it was in the, yeah, yeah. So look, company projects here. They had a collaboration project with, of all people, of with Hoyoverse over Zenless Zone Zero, and I mean, I saw a couple, quite a few of them. They were streaming Genshin Impact and stuff like that, at one point last year. So they have worked with Hoyoverse on collaboration here and allowing them to stream games. It's like how Koei Tecmo now a working distribution agreement with them, so they can stream their library of games from Koei Tecmo without having to get permission to stream those games, because they have this working collaboration um, project with them. So I find that very interesting with NIJISANJI, where you're talking about a Chinese company, and I know a lot of people complain. Well, they're dealing with Chinese people who was or bad were bad at cover corporation, except why are they working with Chinese people, blah blah blah, doing working with Chinese companies. And there is a lot of mixing of companies that have varying degrees of influence and activity within different markets. China is, for better or for worse, one of those markets that you're going to have that's closely associated with idol culture. You know what? If you don't like it, there's Hololive. You know what I'm saying? So, not the June Bride merch. Yeah, it's funny. I was doing some reorganizing of stuff in my living room here a couple days ago, and I stumbled across a box I had gotten of merchandise for Mel before she was terminated, and she did the bride thing. As her last merch drop was literally doing the bride thing. And I just looked at it, I'm like, that is such a bad thing when people keep every year, you see somebody do the whole bride thing, and then they get canned for some strange reason. And it's like, I mean, the real girlfriend experience is nice, but I kind of want you not to lose your job too. You know what I'm saying? Uh, so okay, so large scale projects, we'll have to keep an eye out on that for this coming year, and see just what large projects they have in the pipeline here. Promoted development of units through introduction by original music and various VTuber units and live events. And that's going to be critical, a critical thing, a key component for the EN branch, to be able to make that connection through with the whole J-pop type of um, culture that they are now involved in, and then work through that in e-commerce to supplement the lack of home field advantage for them doing physical goods. But then you talk about the structure of plain attractive merchandise, plan attractive merchandise, and strengthen the structure for merchandise production management and sales promotion. And when you're talking about that again, and it's something I brought up with All Life. What are you gonna do to make it easier for your audience to be able to support your favorite English VTuber without them having to pay $100 just to buy an $80 merch drop. you know I don't know a lot of people who want to drop $200 to buy $80 worth of merchandise. I mean, that's, you know what I'm saying. So all right, so we already talked about this slide here for strengthening the foundation support of VTubers. Again, they talk here at the first talking point here when they're talking about strengthening production support of VTuber activities. They hired more talent management for JP and EN. That was one of the main things that their favorite go-to, that Selen was complaining about their talent management and their talent manager. When you listen to Miki Nico talk about her experiences in Hall Life, she had, there were points where she just absolutely did not like the person that was managing her. You know, a lot of the people and people that were disgruntled, and they were having trouble with, they were having trouble with talented management, and so, um, it being able to hire enough staff to work with people and get things done through production, producers, and managers is really important here. So, but yeah, we have talked about this one, so let's move on here. Um, Another thing I talked about in my preview video is the retiring of talking about this as a talking point for initiatives and how they're spending their money. And I'm glad to see that they're actually talking about how they're utilizing this new studio instead of using it as another talking point for what they have that they're developing, or that they are buying, or buying equipment for, or they're still in the process of building, that kind of thing. I also mentioned in my preview video about them talking more about the benefits of new equipment, new innovation that their VTubers can use. And I'm glad to see that they're talking about 2D studios, 3D studios, recording studios, being able to talk about the what the innovation of having the studio finished is going to bring to the table, and then how are they going to expand upon that. And it's really good to see the fact that that they have been able to hit these these specific points about how they're going to be able to utilize this new studio that they've spent so much money creating. And it's actually kind of ironic that not more people talked about this, but they were talking the Apollo Live stuff. It's like, well, Riku doesn't exactly let people just walk through their building and take pictures and then say, oh, look how nice this this building is, that kind of thing. But I mean, to each their own, So continuous production of VTubers, they're talking about how many VTubers are being hired, which ones they can put through their VTuber talent academy, and the JP side. They're looking at hiring more people that are ready to go VTubers, that have experience on the EN side, as opposed to having to develop talent from the ground up. So it's really good to see that that they are still talking about how they're going to improve, but not necessarily that they are expecting to hire en masse, even more VTubers for their different language groups, and dilute the amount of VTubers that are competing against each other even more than what they have right now. So, debut of new VTubers. They talked about this. 19 new VTubers were introduced this past year, and they have those laid out here. They ended 2025 introducing more men than at the beginning with women, but there's just still a pretty good mix here, so that's nice to see. We're gonna skip the VTA because people always complain about the VTA and how it's only there for JP, and it's a tired point. It's a tired argument at this point. It's something you're just gonna have to live with. Truthfully, realistically, right now, the economy on both sides of the fence in Japan and the United States is just not in a spot where AnyColor can put in a significant amount of money to try to get a VTA set up for the speaking VTubers, and it's just something people are going to have to live with. Increasing revenue per VTuber, this is another huge component. I like that they made sure that all those equipment are ready to use before revealing them. Yes, yes, exactly. It's like we know what we want to do with them, and we know we want to make sure that they're ready and going before we say that, hey, we have this, which is always a good thing. Yeah, definitely. Now this is going to be a major thing for this year. They're talking about large scale projects for NIJISANJI as a whole, as opposed to saying this is what we're doing with EN, this is what we're doing with JP. They're talking about NIJISANJI as a whole. They're talking that they do have development of units through introduction, but that they are still bringing them into the fold, and that the units are like how you have your boy bands and your girl groups and stuff like that. Yeah, they're a unit, but yet they're unified under the NIJISANJI banner as a whole. As you're not having East Coast, West Coast type rapper situation, and who can snipe who and who's going to do a drive. I mean, you know how you have your East Coast, rappers and West Coast rappers, and you have this pride and all this stuff. No, no, no. They're talking about the company as a whole, which is a good thing, and that was one of the major initiatives for this past year. Moving forward, they want to look at how they can make the VTubers more relatable towards the fans that are tuning into them. Work on even larger scale company projects, such as large IP collaborations, and that is something that has been drastically missing from NIJISANJI up until this point. At least in my view, you may have 8, 10, or 12 of the JP branch at some point finally able to collaborate with each other, but we all know how hard it is for the various talent to be scheduled in such a way that they can be ready to do some kind of event together without having conflicts coming up of scheduling. I mean, just look at when they do their whole Mario Kart type of tournament for Hololive. You basically have that schedule 80, 90 VTubers that are spread across many time zones to be able to be ready for them to do the event all on the same days at the same time. So with NIJISANJI being even bigger than Hololive, that's another whole animal together. So, but yeah, I mean, speaking of which, Mario Kart NIJISANJI tournament. I mean, look how many people yet you have in the tournament here. I mean, that's just I mean, that's just crazy insane. I mean, there's a lot of us that like playing mahjong. Watching NIJISANJI playing mahjong, I watch that. I would tune in for that. I would love to see people people competing on that kind of thing. So I mean, for them to being able to say, hey, we're actually going to try to do this for NIJISANJI as a whole. That's great, and I like the fact that they're talking about the livers and NIJISANJI as individuals that are part of a whole, versus, if you notice the wordings in Hololive, that they shifted from that VTuber to content creator. The terminology has changed, and they're talking about them as content creators now and less as VTubers. But then they're also folding that same terminology that they're talking about their talent in the same breath as content creation for illustration of models of games of this and that. That line is being blurred together, and it's becoming less about VTuber and talent, and more content creator being mixed together with other forms of content creation. But then they're also taking that same terminology and applying that towards the people that were developing games in the indie you know scheme of things, and they're talking about being content creation and content creators, people that use the Hollow Earth, and how you can be a content creator for Hololive by designing clothes that other people can buy. That they're really trying to blur the lines there with their terminology, where it's like, yeah, we're on the same level as other people that work for Hololive, but we're in reality they're just getting cheap or free labor out of you as becoming a content creator that's being put your stuff into Hololive. And it's like it feels really dirty. It feels dirty to me. Yeah, I'm a content creator and a VTuber. However, how I get paid from AnyColor and Hololive is different than how other people are working for free and getting little pennants of perks in return for giving up free content for Hololive. It feels dirty to me. I don't know if other people could feel that. Hollow Earth. I've tried making multiple videos about Hollow Earth, and every time I try to put together videos for it, I feel there's just so much wrong with Hollow Earth. I'm like, okay, how can I turn this into a 15 minute video, or break it down into two parts and make it like 5 to 7 minutes each, and talk about everything I want to talk about without turning it into basically a 13 video episode season on my channel, and that's the only thing I'm going to be talking about, because I feel there's so much wrong with it. I'm really glad to see that Riku did not sit there and say, well, Yago is doing it, we're gonna one up him. I am really glad that I got through this material without seeing that. Okay, so just really quickly here. Nope, not that one. That one. Okay, so they have not halted trading for AnyColor for today, and there has been some small variance movements of activity here, but this is probably one of the first couple signs of a downward push, but if we look at the metrics underneath here, the money flow is basically saying that it's oversold right now at this point. So you would expect to start seeing upward pressure here, and that's actually confirmed with the relative strength index here The relative strength index is not under 30 for a metric point, a reference point, but it's still below the signal line here. So, but there is some upward momentum there, and as we can see here with the bottom two, we basically it went from highly active down to relative, just kind of putzing along type of action here. And it's still above the zero line here, and that's why we see it being maintained at this level. But there just has not been enough downward momentum to push it down below 47.85 right now, which is fair. It's still fair. I mean, you're still talking about 16.85 percent increase in today, and in fact, it's starting to go back up here again. Now, the big challenge here is we're gonna see trading all the way up till the lunchtime hour, and in a lot of cases in the Japanese market, the lunch hour is drastically different. Oh, let's see, there was a whole bunch of sell off right there. That just spiked down there. That How big was that? Okay, so that this was a downward push of 17,000. Someone just sold 17,000, 18,000 shares in this downward push here. But it's within the what they call the choppy tolerance here. The lowest that's dropped here price wise, it has been 47.65. So there is a line of resistance here where it has not dropped below this line of resistance here. So if we see another red bar that drops below 47.65, then we know that there has been some drastic selling here that would change the whole dynamic of where things are at right now. But day change here is still plus 16.85. So, and to be honest, last quarter, when we stopped looking at this completely, last quarter was like this as well after the morning push. But again, we'll have to take a peek here at the other side of the lunch break to see whether or not any of the actions actually changed. So let's see here. Let's go back. Okay, so we're on slide 29. Basically, a lot of these slides are the same. They're just updated for the coming year and what they're doing differently as opposed to the year before. Merchandise planning to address fans needs. Again, we've talked about this already in depth, as far as e-commerce versus material. I found this one kind of interesting too. I didn't even know this existed until I saw this slide here. That there is a store in pre-opening of a portal site for this. There's a permanent store that opened in Yokohama, and then they have an e-store here where you can buy plush toy content and advertise. They're advertising. I have not gone and looked at the charges are different from this store. If the shipping charges are different, buying through the store here, That would be a major game changer for them because, again, you spend $60 to buy a plush toy, and then you spend $120 just to try to get it shipped to you, and so this is actually kind of cool. I haven't checked this out yet. I haven't checked out the website yet, but this is kind of cool. I was really surprised to see this, that they had, and they have stock here as well. So if they have a backlog of stock, they go just put it out on the floor. Okay, so initiatives of merchandise manufacture and promotion. This is going to be a major talking point, at least in my opinion, with the way things currently are, with trying to get manufacturing and merch to your English audience without having them spend a considerable amount of money. Um, if they're able to do something like this and have shipping and handling handled a little bit differently, so I'm not spending $100 to buy something, yeah, I would consider buying it through this store here. But you have to have them look at quality and content and negotiation with manufacturers. It likely costs them more to move manufacturing from China to Japan, which, I mean, everyone knows. If you need something cheaply made, you have it done in China, right? I mean, that's just the way practically the entire world is going. Okay, so basic business. Yeah, physical store open for plushies and puppets. Yeah, that is awesome. That is, I mean, that's incredible. I am really happy to see that, because I mean, if you have a Pokemon store and then you have your NIJISANJI store down the street or something like that, I think that's kind of cool, as opposed to, like, you end up having to go and negotiate with, like, different companies just to have them sell one or two of their plush toys there as a marketing gimmick. Being able to, like, have, like, your limited editions, plush dolls with, like, McDonald's, Japan, and then also having, like, your regular lineup of merch in a storefront like that. I mean, I think that's really cool, and that really kind of reaches out towards your home country audience base there. And it what I found hilarious was the fact that people were already writing Japan off as being oversaturated, overbought. You can't expand in the market anymore, and it's like, are you kidding me? Are you really kidding me? I mean, yeah, just because Japan is smaller per size as opposed to other countries does not mean that everyone in said cities have actually bothered to check out VTubers. You still have millions of people that are living within the same you know cities of other places in Japan that probably have never watched a live stream of a VTuber. So it's like, you're gonna have to be more convincing than that. So this is the business model that was so heavily criticized last year that it literally had me on the floor laughing. Um, and again, you fall side. Listen to me, fall side. Okay, this 20 billion yen here, it's not just 20 billion yen that Riku has sitting on a mattress in one of his mansions. Okay, um, they cash on hand does not literally mean that they have it in their hands. Okay, don't embarrass yourself again this year. Okay. All right, because just look at the line below that, because shareholder return 30 billion. Sorry, I mean, uh, and the sad part is shareholder return. You see here over 30 billion yen, right? But in one of the earlier slides, I mean, the dividend payout the total amount of dividend payout is only going to be 2 billion over the next 12 months. And they're not going to spend the whole 30 billion yen here in an entire year. It's not like they have 30 billion yen in a bank account somewhere that's just sitting there doing nothing. I mean, come on, man, really, seriously. So anyways, yeah, I just have to poke fun at that because I found that so hilarious. um I mean, even cash on hand. I want to see this real quick. I forgot to look at this. Um, their cash flow here for at the end of 2024. So the total amount of free cash flow that they have, that AnyColor has, on hand. There. Okay. So the total amount of free cash flow that AnyColor has on hand right now, at the end of the fiscal year, is 902 billion yen. All right. That's way smaller than the 20 billion yen that is sitting on somebody's mattress somewhere, and the 30 billion yen that they have as return to investors. uh, Full side, I would not be able to make as much content as I can without you and Lydia. I swear. I would actually be playing a video game right now live if it wasn't for so okay, so business overview. We've looked at a lot of this stuff already. Comprehensive support system for VTubers. They have the various steps here. Now, this is something very interesting here as well. Is that the business model for the AnyColor has changed. It hasn't changed by a lot, but it has changed. Last year, total the total revenue for live streaming was at 18% last year, and they're only looking at 12% revenue. Um, Event revenue here has also been scaled back, and so what they took from live streaming and event, they've added to commerce, and commerce, combined with promotion, are going to be the two drivers for AnyColor for this coming year. So you're going to have, Lydia's going to have her clickbait material for this coming year, saying how devastating the numbers are for NIJISANJI, when she only looks at the EN side. But live streaming only accounts for 12% of their revenue. So it's like, you take 12%, and then you take like 20% of that 12%, which comes out to about maybe like 2%, 3%, and she's claiming the sky is falling over 3% of the 12% of the 100% that goes into the the total amount of revenue that they report. And it's like, okay, whatever. And the sad thing is I have a flip script here of, I get about 70-30 of male visitors to my channel versus female visitors. When I post a video about AnyColor, and the 70% think that the sky is following, of male people that visit my my channel when I post something about Niji. Um, when what the product AnyColor is putting out is serving a 71% fan base that are women. And it's like, there's a specific reason why AnyColor has not failed, and it's because of their large female fan base. Versus if you look at the script that's flipped for Hololive, the script is flipped. It's you have a 30% female fan base versus a 70% male base. It's completely different, you know. So yeah. Anyways, so there's a lot of these slides I'm going to skip over because I'm going to talk about these things in a separate video, so I can provide more context at what we're looking at here, but largely, and I don't think I saw anything here that we haven't already talked about. Yeah, I haven't. Most of this stuff here we've already talked about. So, real quickly here, for the full year of this past fiscal year, they had a 34% increase in revenue growth. Cost of sales, on average, 53% of their revenue went to supporting or paying their VTubers and or support production group. And this is the breakdown here. 46.4% was spent on the VTubers themselves, including the platform support fees, their salaries, that kind of thing. When you look at this section here for direct variable cost, the 6.7%. Stop it. Okay. The 2.8% here, or otherwise 6.7% of the other cost of sales. This includes the salary of all the support staff for them to make their content, whether it be like technicians that work with them, or producers, managers, people in in studio, that kind of thing. That's all included here. So 46.4% of the revenue went straight to the VTubers to either pay their salary or pay like for merchandise creation, or platform fees, or those types of things. Everything else here, SG&A. I mean, this is a huge difference between AnyColor and Cover Corporation. I mean, AnyColor is only spending 3.8 billion yen on SG&A, which is for sales, general, and administrative staff. That includes getting people out there that's working PR. I mean, they're selling that much merch, and they're spending so much less than what Cover Corporation is. And where Cover is bleeding money, going forward, trying to, being crushed under their own weight, and AnyColor is just kind of like moving along here. I mean, they still averaged 26.8% net margin, net income, with the margin was 26.8%. And Cover Corporation is half that. Now, you will see people argue that, well, yeah, Cover is half that because they have half the staff of what AnyColor has, but yet they spend more than AnyColor, and AnyColor has more people, and the average salary difference between AnyColor and Cover Corporation for the average employee is about 10,000 yen. and that's the difference, the beginning salary difference. Um, and this, this slide here, um, see here, blah, 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 blah. You have the patience of a saint for listening to them. Lawson's given up. Man, I tell you what, it drives me. My cat literally leaves the room when he hears Lydia's voice. That's how sad it's sad. It really is. It's sad that he literally gets up and leaves when he hears Lydia's voice, but he actually comes out of his bedroom. My two cats have their own bedroom. I have a two. I have a two-bedroom for myself, right? And I have all my stuff producing and stuff like that, video stuff in one room. And then my cats have their own bedroom, and then I have my own bedroom, right? But my cats sleep in there. I give my cats kind of like a safe and quiet space if they want to be left alone. And when they hear Roboco's voice, I almost every single time one of them comes running into the room and sits down with me and just sits there the entire time that I'm watching her stream. Um, More times than not, it's my Siamese, but sometimes my Calico will come do that. But I mean, my Siamese gets up and leaves the room when he hears Lydia's voice. And I just can't help but laugh when I see that, when he does that. But yeah, all right. Um, and the merch is oftentimes targeted towards women as well. Yes, exactly. They're doing more of the, like, the girly stuff, because they know that beauty and fashion is such a high commodity in Japan that Japan's economy spends more money on beauty and makeup, products than what the United States does on a yearly basis. And of course, the United States, it's bigger, but Japan has more people, and a lot of those girls, they care more about fashion than anything else. And that's why you have this stuff geared towards them. And I mentioned this on my community tab. I'm also going to mention here, just on the video, that you sit here and you see those people talking about, oh, look, look how dismal these numbers are for the EN branch and everything. But like I mentioned in my community tab, the focus isn't on live streaming revenue for either branch. When you look at the comparison between what comes in for live streaming versus what is coming in for commerce, repeatedly, even last year, you have almost a 2-to-1 ratio here of commerce being sold for every for every yen that comes in for live streaming. You have 2-to-1 in commerce. And when you look at the JP branch, it's 4-to-1 here, almost 5-to-1 here. You have almost a 3-to-1 there. You have over 4-to-1 there. When you look at this, there is a drastic difference between what comes in for live streaming, and what they're focused on, and the fact that they have this amount coming in, and you look at the ratio for it, the ratio of what comes in to what's being reported fits almost exactly what with the business model that they currently have. I mean, there's no story there. There is absolutely no story there. It's performing the exact way it's supposed to perform, because that's the way that they have it designed. The focus is on commerce and promotion, not live streaming. This coming year is going to be even different, because they're cutting back on that stuff as well. And it's because they have the talent doing other things other than live streaming. I mean, I don't know how Yago runs Hololive, on a day to day basis, but I mean, I've sat here for the last couple weeks now, and Roboco has been able to stream almost every single day, and she's playing Stardew Valley for like 6 hours a day for the last 2 weeks. She's never been able to do that until just recently. And it has me wondering. I wonder if they're not having them do that because they're looking at cost saving measures, and them playing games is the best cost saving measure that they could possibly implement for the first 6 months, knowing that they have their profit margins are going to be that small for Hololive. Whereas AnyColor, when you look at AnyColor, AnyColor looks ambitious, looks very ambitious here. What was the whoops, let's go back to this one. And did I go too far? No, I don't think so. Yeah, any color for the first quarter of this fiscal year coming up here. They're looking at revenue of 13 to 14, with an operating profit of 39%. When you look at that, and you look at the net revenue here, I mean, you're still looking at a 20% roughly net profit ratio off of their first quarter earnings, whereas AnyColor is only predicting an 8% net profit for the first 6 months. And you have AnyColor coming up and saying, okay, here, hold my beer, because we're gonna be bringing in this much money for Q1. And I just gotta look at this and say, if they can make this kind of money doing what they're doing, how come Covercore is spending all this money that isn't pulling in the same kind of returns? When are you going to start bringing in the same kind of returns that the other company is bringing in? You know what I'm saying? So it really makes it kind of like, it makes me go a little crazy when I look at it. But there is, I can only hold my tongue for so long before I have to actually start talking about it in public. And more often than not, I start talking about it, and I just can't stop talking about it. But there was, yeah, the total operating expenses for this past year, for AnyColor for the previous 12 months was 2660 for the entire year, right? Now, when you look at Cover Corporation and we come down here, total operating expenses, they spent 35 billion yen in the last 12 months, and they have what, half, 40% or 60% of when you're comparing companies, they have like 90 or something like that. VTubers working for their company, and they're spending this much money on them, and you're rate of return, that your net margin rate of return is 12%. But when you look at the other company here, they're spending less than you, yet they're bringing in 28%, 25%. Why is smaller company bringing in so little in the way of net profit? When you're a smaller company, you shouldn't be having to pay nearly as much to be able to do the same things, but yet you are making less. It just it's highly sus. To me, it's highly sus. I just look at it and I'm like, how, I mean, they reported 14.54 billion yen for Q4, right? So they brought in that much. The bigger company brought in less. The bigger company brought in less in revenue, but yet they met the estimates. They were able to keep their costs down, and they made it such as their net revenue is so high that they were able to meet both of the criteria for their forecast, whereas the smaller company that is making more is spending more and misses their forecasted Q4 revenue numbers. How I'm not trying to sound like a Native American. How? It doesn't make sense. It just does not make any sense in my brain. How? Now, there is something I do want to talk about, and I actually am going to be making a separate video about it as well, but I'm going to talk about it right now because I wanted to I wanted to speak a little bit about it right now, but I'm going to be making a longer video about it here later on, and that's what's called a company's intrinsic value. The company's intrinsic value, it can be different for every single person depending on what you're looking for, or how you value a company, those types of things, right? Now I ran I ran 10 separate trial reports for Q4 and AnyColor, utilizing all their data over the past couple years, through Gronk, which is X's AI, Gemini, which is Google's AI, and ChatGPT was giving me all sorts of sass, so I didn't bother with it, right? But the long and the short of it is that when I ran the trial reports for Cover Corporation, they basically said not so subtle terms that depending on how you look at Cover Corporation, their intrinsic value is between 1,300 to 2,100 yen per share, depending on what you're looking for from the company. All right. When I asked it about AnyColor, and I ran those 10 reports through, Gronk, their way of valuing AnyColor was lower, whereas Gemini for Google was higher. Gronk basically said, depending on how you look at AnyColor, AnyColor's intrinsic value is between 35 to 3,800 yen per share, whereas Google said that the intrinsic value in their opinion was between 38 to 41. Again, it depends on what you're looking for in a company, how you value it, and what you're trying to get out of the company that you're investing in. All right, but the fact that it nailed both both companies and where they sit at right now was very telling to me that right now AnyColor is exceeding the expectations of its intrinsic value in accordance to how, depending on how you value the company. And with Cover Corporation, they are high, but they are still, they're at the upper edge of what the intrinsic value would be for their company as well. And that's why for the last several days after their Q4 report, um, Cover Corporation hasn't been able to recover from that drop of where they were. They're slowly having to start building themselves back up, chart wise, in order to get back to where they were. Um, Matter of fact, they actually gapped up as well here, June 25th. Yeah, they gapped up here. And that was right about. Hang on. So from their drop here, their drop in Q3 to right here, I mean, yeah, they opened up higher, but it's still very, very far off from the 3,400, 3,500 of where they were back in February, right? But it, all the reports I ran using the same metrics, none of them, absolutely none of them, said that AnyColor or I'm sorry, Cover Core was worth over 3,000 yen a share. And the most polite result that I was able to get out of those reports were about 2,000, and the bottom edge was way back at the bargain bin of like 1,400 per share. But they all absolutely looked at AnyColor and said, "Oh yeah, they're worth this much here." So, but it's really gonna depend on how much and how well they're able to hold the line, so to speak. Here, they've been able to get to 47.85, which is at the higher end of their forecast. We haven't seen anybody raise their forecast yet, but we will probably won't see any analysts raise their forecast of the company until at least the close of the trading date here. Um, and it will really, really depend on how the second half of today's trading um, unfolds. If they drop for what any particular reason, and there hasn't been any particular reason right now. Um, if they do drop, then we know that this was all just kind of like celebratory type of buying. But as of yesterday, the short trader volume was not very high for AnyColor, and most of the short trading that was reported had an equal amount of cover calls to cover their shorts, because they were basically saying, okay, yeah, it's not going to drop down. This is going to hurt. I better cover my shorts here, so at least I don't lose any. Um, you know, I won't lose as much money, because I put so much in the shorts. That's basically what it was. And that's basically what we saw here at the very beginning. That, as soon as they realized, hey, yeah, this is going to gap up hard. Um, that, this first candlestick here was very telling that practically everyone who had bought into AnyColor, whether they be margin traders or short traders, they basically dumped their stocks here at the very beginning. And that's why you have this huge amount volume of 698,000 shares were dumped here at the very beginning, and then continued bliss for the rest of the morning. So yeah, we should actually see at the end of today whether or not there are any shorts left out that haven't been or have been held on to. But I believe that, in my opinion, a lot of the volume here, they would probably do an entry point here for buying short, with the belief that after today they will start seeing a drop, and that would be probably the biggest scenario here. And for people who are buying long, their biggest concern will be whether or not short traders try to take advantage of where the company is at and try to drive the price lower. So it will be very interesting. We will have to keep an eye on the amount of volume that they currently have, in order to know whether or not they'll be able to maintain the price up here. My thoughts are that the investors will try their best to keep the stock up this high. I said this earlier, that I don't believe that the price would go up high enough to where Riku and the board directors will say that they want to do another stock split. I don't think 47 is high enough for that, but if it is a sustained 4,700 per share from now till the beginning of June or July, then they might consider it. Or if it goes higher than 4,700 and we start seeing like 5,000, so on and so forth, then we might see them do a stock split and then a stock buyback. But for right now, I don't foresee that. But I don't I'm not that smart in stock trading, so I try to be accurate, but yeah, I'm not infallible when it comes to stock trading. But I sure find it interesting anyways. You're back at lunchtime in Tokyo. Yeah, definitely it's lunchtime in Tokyo. People usually confused with subscriber, viewer. Yeah, I hear you. Versus viewer count, money count made. Yeah, especially like when it comes to viewer count. If you click on the video and you're not like a YouTube premium, yeah, if you don't have a YouTube premium account, you get all the ads and stuff like that, so you get ad clicks. But there's a big difference between that and subscriber count. Subscriber, typically subscriber has a better chance of turning into a member once you're monetized. usually, right? But anybody can click on your video and you get a click count and a view count for ad revenue. But um, short trader will take advantage. There'll be a correction, but this is looking about 43 to 44. I would call that fair. I mean, right now, at lunchtime, we're sitting at 16%, right? Um, and I I looked at last year's, and last year's, they gapped up past 20%, and that's why they held, they shut down, um, you know, uh, trading on AnyColor last year, right? Because they gapped up to like 21, 22% last year. This year they didn't gap up nearly as much, where they went up 16.85, and right now, yeah, with them being where they're at right now, unless it goes higher in afternoon trading, which it could, um, they probably will continue trading for the rest of today. But yeah, one of the other things that we have to be readily aware of as well is, I mean, they're doing this well despite the fact that the Tokyo Stock Exchange is in the red. I mean, they're only down 11 points, but I mean they are in the red. The Nikkei is at down 246. They're less than 1% in the red here, but yet they are down. So it will kind of depend on whether or not the markets falter even further or not. Um, I don't know if there has been any international type of um, news that would make them go one way or the other. Other than the fact I did see the framework was drawn up between China and the United States over some trade agreement. I did not see exactly what the details entailed on those, but I said this earlier in one of the videos that the Prime Minister of Japan was hoping to have a framework or a trade agreement with the United States by the end of the G7 summit, which is next month. So, I mean, the timing could actually work in AnyColor's favor, where if they come to a trade agreement with the United States, and then they have their annual shareholder um, debriefing, the timing could actually be right and cause it to spike higher, is what I'm saying. But again, that's kind of trying to predict the future, and I'm not smart enough to be able to predict the future that well, at least not yet. But um, it's market, yeah. You can be accurate. If you could be accurate, you could be rich, right? Yeah. Well, I I'm self-taught, right? When it comes to the market, I'm self-taught. I do a lot of reading, and I'm self-taught. I haven't gone to school or go to college for any of this type of stuff, and a lot of the stuff that I know is because I do a lot of reading, and a lot of my reading and references for trading typically have been inspired by Warren Buffett and the Berkshire Hathaway people that run that particular holding group, right? And so people looked at me, looking at me like I'm a little stupid, and they're like, how come you didn't sell on cover when you had the chance, right? And for me, it's like, well, I could have sold it, right? But I could have sold, and I could have made my a pretty decent profit off of it. However, when I look at like how things have gone for AnyColor, you had your first 2 to 3 years, which was heavily volatile before they start going into a cyclical pattern of predictability. So like if you buy at 2000, and you know that at the end of Q2, they're typically at their highest at the end of Q2, and that's right around Christmas, right? So if you know that they're at their highest at Q2, why would you sell at Q3 or Q4 for less and take a smaller profit if it if you're not going to get what you want out of it? You might as well hang on to it and keep the investment long at the lower price until it's back up to where you want it, right? So, people, the general public and people themselves, they tend to panic sell. They see red. Red is actually positive in Japan, and green is actually negative. The whole script is flipped, right? But they see red and they panic, and so they sell at a loss. And if the whole idea of investing in a company is to not sell at a loss and get a profit out of it, you might as well cash in when you're at your most favorable position to get the most out of it that you want to get out of it. Because say that cover does poor, right? And they meander where they are right now. There's no sense in me bothering to even look to see if I want to sell at that point for them. But yet, like, let's take AnyColor. AnyColor is at 47.85, right? I could have sold here at opening, but I'm not going to, because I know that there is stuff that comes after this that could actually stoke the price to make it go even higher. And if it drops, it drops. I'm not going anywhere. My money isn't going anywhere. And AnyColor has proven twice now, or even more than twice. I mean, let's look at the seasonal numbers here. All right, here's the seasonal numbers for AnyColor. You have your different years here since they've been public, right? You have your first year here. These colors are kind of bad, but you have your first year here where as a public company, they spiked up here just like we are right here, right? We see that they had a positive climb here in 2025, which is where we're at. Same thing in 2022. Same thing in 2023. And their off year, they still had a spike in their share price, despite it being an off year for them. We know it goes up here because of the Q4 report and the annual report. We know it's going to taper off here at as we get into August and into September. Then we're going to get to the next report, right? And when we look at the next report, this is Q1 earnings. Yeah, this is Q1 earnings here, right? In 2022 they spiked up 98%. And in 2023 they spiked up here at 37%. Last year, they were down here, at minus 39.91, and they climbed out of this hole here, and they climbed by an average of 17 points. So we know it's going to go up here before the end of the year. Even when they had an off year here, you still had gains here, right? Now, why would I want to sell my shares down here when I bought the shares last year, say at right here? It doesn't make any sense. It makes absolutely no sense. If I bought at 39.15% in 2023, and then I panic sell and sell at a minus 19.88, you're losing 58% of any possible gains that you could make later on. So why bother? This money ain't going anywhere. Even if I were to sell right here, even at where we're at right now, and I bring in a realized gain of 53%. Just say that for example, all right? Yeah, 53%. I could take that and walk away, or I could wait till they get to Q1 over here and see whether or not I can double this into this. And if I don't, I'm still holding on to a company I bought into when they were at like 2100, right? So if they miss here, right, and I miss the window of opportunity over here, I know that since they have a cyclical nature, that there's going to be another time here further on down where I could sell. So, I could sell here, way up here, when it's way at 130% profit, or I could panic sell and it be down here, or I could sell here and just walk away. But if I sell here and walk away, I miss out on any chance of getting this here. And the way that they are currently performing, they are performing on par with their first year that they were a publicly traded company. So in my eyes, it's like, okay, well, I'm gonna hold on to it. We're gonna get to July. If July they say that they are gonna do a stock split, then what I can do is, I'll get 2 shares for every share I own. I can get my money back and get my original investment back, and then keep the rest of my shares in here and wait for the next opportunity that I know is going to come later on down here. I mean, to me, it makes sense. It's a growing company with sustainable. Yeah, it's a growing company with a sustainable business model that they've had success, and they're outselling their competition in their home country. So, when you have to look at it from a perspective of the business, that their central fan base, their central market, that they are currently number one there, and they are doing all the right things to stay number one in their home backyard, and then they're branching out. Whereas people in the United States and Canada and God knows wherever the other people live, they have the impression of, okay, well, they have Japan. Yeah, well, Japan is Japan, but Hololive English is Hololive English. And it's like, yeah, just because they opened up a satellite office here in the United States does not mean that they have the entire arsenal of things that they can use in Japan and the United States. The most that they have over here are people who are working public relations and and doing business contracts with various companies around in California, which right now is in riot phase. So uh, I'm not too and thrilled or anxious to see anything with Hololive happening in Los Angeles while they're rioting. you know so you know for me it's like, okay, well, there is so much more diverse stuff that they are doing with their local population, with the people that are right in front of them, and reaching out, as opposed to this forward vision that Iago has, where he is wanting to do more stuff with more innovation, but he never finishes or gets completed what they are originally working with. So you end up having this complete drop off and everything else. I mean, it took this long for them to even get their shorts, their anime shorts, going at the pace that they are doing right now on their home channel. And it's still from the perspective of, you know, girl cosplaying as blank, and they're still in a Japanese office in Japan. It's like, what happened with all the innovation that we saw at the very beginning, where, like, Marine is actually acting like a pirate that is at her pirate hideout, and people come over to visit her, but she's still a pirate. It's like, yeah, I mean, she has the whole idol sexy thing going, and everyone loves that, right? And she's like the thing out there, aside from Picora and some of the other ones, right? But it's like, can't we kind of like have her maybe wrangle some of the other girls there and put that short into her being on the pirate ship and making them be her crewmates or something? Just something, anything other than, because it feels like all it is right now is girls cosplaying. That's what it's boiled down to. Girls cosplaying. And it's like, I want character development. I know it's awful for me to say, because they are streamers and content creators, I guess, and everything else, but they are playing a role. They are playing a role, and but they're no longer embodying their character lore, and it's like, it's kind of sad, because I mean, that's why, like, a lot of times, if I'm streaming and I'm talking about this kind of stuff, where it helps to have a full video, a full display here, so we can look at everything. I don't even put my model up on the screen, because my model is going to be too distracting, right? And yeah, you're gonna have Wolf Boy. Wolf Boy talks stocks. It's like, I'm literally Ukami of Wall Street. I just realized that I should coin myself the Wolf of Wall Street. Because it's like, man, that actually clicks pretty well. Anyways, but yeah, it's a growing model, business model that they have here, that has by and large been successful. I mean, we look at here's year to date. Year to date, they let me turn the percentile back up here. So here's the zero line, right? And right now, year to date, they are at 70.88%. And for perspective, let's put a cover out here, and we're gonna turn there. Okay, so candles are AnyColor, and the maroon line here is cover, and this is just stock price movement. This is not a comparison of price; it's stock price movement. And back here in February, when CoverCore was at that point higher than AnyColor, and then this is where the drop off happened for their Q2, or I'm sorry, Q3 report here. All right, so again, the candles and the earnings tags down here are AnyColor, and this is how CoverCore. All right, and this is where they diverged, and their divergence here was at Q3 for AnyColor, where AnyColor showed that they could beat their earnings estimate forecast, and they basically just kept going up while Cover Corporation continued to go down. Now, as we see here, Cover did get a small bump from the positive news with AnyColor, which is good. They did get a modest bump here from zero line to 6%, 7%. So, are they still at 7%? Okay, so yeah, they're at they got a 5% bump off of the good news for AnyColor, which is good for, it's good for competition, and it's good for both companies here. I've always said this, competition is good, and in this case, competition is also displaying the difference between two business models, two very different business models of thought, of one group focusing more on the music industry portion of it, while the other one here is trying to be, how do you brand it, a multifaceted company that does a little bit of everything, but that doesn't complete anything, and everything is kind of a work in progress as they keep adding new things. I don't know. I just kind of find I can't talk anymore. Kind of find it funny that that's kind of where we're at right now. But this is, I mean, it's a good thing that especially for Hall Live and Cover, which could have used some good news ever since their continued drop, and the rumors of their termination has been exaggerated as they try to recover. I mean, if we look at the full picture here, I mean, this is the full picture of last year to this year, and we can count the earnings report here for AnyColor as basically the termination line here for the entire year, because now everyone is back working on Q1, right? AnyColor is going to report, or CoverCore is going to report here. And then a month later, it'll be AnyColor, right? This candlestick here was when we had the global sell-off here, and I think the Nikkei lost like 22% that day. I think it was somewhere around here. But I remember in the process of recovery, Cover unfortunately had their um, first quarter report fall right in the middle of it, and that's why we have that double dip here. And I'm like, man, they picked the wrong day to report, you know. But yeah, they were on the second dip here, and then after that second dip, you know, I mean, they went back up, and just like AnyColor, you know, they finish off, they get strong here at around Q2, and they keep climbing, and if you're lucky, you get the huge peak here. The only difference is, you know, they fell, and AnyColor hasn't. So um let's see, what else was there. um I think that about covers it for now. um I can't. I'm just looking at my. Since I started so late, I I had to throw basically everything I had planned out the window to try to catch up. Um, yeah, I think that about covers it. So what I'm gonna do is I will be doing an individualized report um, video on this, just like how I did with Cover Corporation, and cover a lot of the different key points that we've talked about tonight in a more condensed fashion. There are quite um, a bit of other things I have been working on to also put out here, and to give a lot of different perspective that perhaps other people don't correctly report about, to provide you know, you guys and people that come and watch my content about Cover and AnyColor. I've had a lot of people that like have DM'd me. They're like, dude, I mean, why do you even bother saying that you are a shareholder of Cover when all you do is, you know, talk down about them? And it's like, for me, it's like, it's not, I'm not talking down about, you know, the company as an entity. I'm talking, you know, I'm talking about the concerns I have about what they're doing versus, you know, where I think that value, or that allocation of resources should be going, and why it concerns me about how, which direction Yago is taking the company. Because I mean, people basically, you know, I've had people try to argue, well, you claim you are a stockholder, therefore you have a stake in here, in this company, so you're just going to talk them up anyways. And it's like, no. I'm going to criticize the company. I'm going to criticize anything, or, you know, give my perspective of things when I think something is bad. And I'm going to talk about the good when I think, you know, there's stuff that is good. You know, now again, we'll take AnyColor here tonight. AnyColor, I've said a lot of good about AnyColor, but I have a lot of concern about AnyColor as well. You know, and a lot of people have brought it up, and some of the earlier videos, and through DMs, and other comments, and replies and stuff like that. That, you know, when we were saying, you know, that AnyColor is focusing strictly on having commerce as their revenue driver, how does that affect the English branded VTubers when they have, you know, merch drops that happen, and their merch drops are basically still stuck in Japan, and they don't have the PR behind them enough in the English market to get people buying their stuff in the English market. And my response to that is, why would you want to do that and try to insist that your fan base spend that much money on physical goods when you could try to be innovative about it and do more digital goods that your fans can have better access to. And then when you have special events that you are a part of, whether it be your birthday, anniversary, whatever, then have that be your merch drop instead of having to try to get people to constantly buy your merch, and constantly telling them you're going to have to pay twice as much to get my merch, but buy my merch. I mean, that's why I stopped watching and looking at that stuff when it came to Hololive, because it's like, dude, I want to get that thing that that Maury was selling. I really liked it, but you know what? I'm not gonna pay $240 to buy merch that is only priced at $120. I'm just not gonna do it. I'm not. you know and when you look at it from the perspective of, okay, I want to buy that stuff that Maury has that is pushing for her merchandise. Oh, and I also want to buy Robocos. Okay, so now I have Maury's at $240, Robocos is at $240. So I'm gonna be paying $480 for two merch drops from two VTubers that their merch is only worth half that much. Or I could go out and buy me a Switch too. You know what I'm saying? It's like, common sense. Where's the common sense in the whole thing? So, I feel personally that if you are gonna, if you have, people in your English branch, start looking at innovating your merch drops, and have it be e-commerce drops. Make some of those things different. Be different from try to be different, but still work within the restrictions or the guidelines of your company, and perhaps even saying being able to lay out that stuff in front of your manager and have your manager take it up to get it approved, and you have all this stuff laid out. Okay, it might actually be a good idea, and you might actually be able to innovate for your branch or your group or your your team. That it just makes that much more sense to me. That you're not pushing people to spend twice as much for something that is only worth half that price. Hey, that's why they called marginal profit. Yeah, exactly. It's like, it makes so much sense. And the problem that I keep seeing over and over and over again is that you have these independent individual, or sometimes loosely affiliated VTubers who are sitting here looking at the professionals that work for agencies, and they are criticizing them like the person that they're talking about or the group they're talking about are also independent VTubers. And it's like, look, it's like, hey, you live and operate off of your donations and your subs and everything else because you stream on Twitch or you stream on YouTube. That is your source of income. That is that is what pays for you to be a streamer or a content creator, right? But your focus is membership and subscriptions and donations or super chats. That is your focal point. Then you operate off of that. Then you do your merch. Then you do your other stuff. But it doesn't work that way for the big boys. You know, it doesn't work that way for AnyColor and cover core and the big players. What you're talking about, what you're criticizing about with AnyColor, that's chump change to them. I I I looked at it the other day. It's like, okay, people are hand wringing and saying that AnyColor is donezo, and that they can never recover, and because they're wringing their hands of 4% maybe of their total revenue. If you can even count that much, you're saying that they're done for because you see that they're down on 4% of their revenue. But okay, so does that mean that the other 96 doesn't exist? Oh, it does exist. Oh, they exceeded expectations on the 96% of it, and you're trying to get people worked up over 4% of their total revenue. Yeah. It's like, come on. Come on. uh but yeah, so final look at AnyColor here. Final look at AnyColor here before we call it a night. They are currently sitting at 17% increase since their report. And we have approximately, so we got approximately 2 hours and 40 minutes left. So long as we don't have a 17% drop by market close, as long as they stay they don't drop 7%, and they close about 10% higher than their open, I will honor my agreement of donating to a smaller VTuber, or in this case, a VTuber equal to my stature. I have not decided on who to donate to yet. I do have a few people in mind, but I don't know if I want to do split between the two of them, or if I just want to donate to one of them. But I do have a couple people in mind. So when I do make that decision, I will I'll list off who it is. I don't want to make it about me. I want to donate to people who have higher aspirations than me. So I would rather donate to them so they can have more wiggle room to do what they want to do, versus donate to somebody who already has 1 million subscribers and probably would just say, oh, thanks, and then move on. You know what I'm saying? So I don't want to make it about me, though. I don't want to say, hey, look, I did that. I'd rather say, hey, you are doing something that you want to do. You're inspired to do it. You feel like I want you to succeed. I don't want you to have to hang I don't want you to have to graduate. So if I can give you something that that I got from a bigger company that allows me to exist because they made VTubers popular, I want to be able to give it to you, so so you can keep doing what you want to do. That's basically where I'm at. So, but I will post and let people know who I have donated to once I made that decision. And then I kind of wanted to make it a kind of a ongoing thing. I don't know whether or not, like, if say for instance AnyColor is up here at 47 and then they drop down to like 2,000, and then they climb back up to like 3,000. I don't know if I want to, kind of, you know, make a big deal about that success if they drop that hard. But I do want to see cover chord kind of like recover off of their cliff jump here. So I would at least consider doing it, even though any cover core is only predicting an 8% revenue um, uh, um, revenue take for Q1 and Q2 of this next 6 months. So we'll see. We'll see. I haven't made my decision on that yet, but I do want to at least try to help another person out that has the talent and ambition to at least try to help them succeed a little bit further. So I've had a lot of a lot of other VTubers, reach out to me and actually be kind to me over the last couple of years that I've struggled with my health and with the loss of my family members and stuff like that, and they've really been helpful to me, and kind and patient, and I would like to reward them. I would like to thank them for being that way. And some of them, happen to be smaller VTuber channels, and you know, I think they have a lot of talent, and they're doing what they want and enjoy, and I would like to see them continue doing it as long as they want to do it. So, if if I could donate to them, and that helps them, keep doing what they want to do, I'd rather do that. I mean, it's hard for me to we've been streaming now for 3.5 hours, and right now I kind of feel like I'm gonna pass out because I've my it's been a long day, and my health is something I'm still trying to work on. So it's been hard for me to be alive and do stuff. So I would at least rather help them out than be selfish and just say I'm gonna take the money and walk. But that's the way I want to handle it. If I can help another person out, I definitely would want to pass it on. So at any rate, I'm gonna go ahead. We're gonna call it a night here. We will keep an eye on and make sure, what the closing numbers are. Again, I do have a couple of videos I'm working on right now. One of them is a condensed version of everything we talked about tonight. Hopefully, I'll be able to put that up in the next few days. And get that going along with some of the other stuff I just have not been able to finish and complete yet. So, I should have several videos coming up here pretty quick as long as I can keep my health in good shape and rest as when I really need to, and not have the pressure of saying I have to be live tonight. But we'll keep doing it this way. And, when I am able to do live streams about, something or anything, I definitely will let you guys know. As you guys know, or if you're new, I do regularly post in the community page on my channels to keep you guys informed of what's going on. Secondary source of information is X or Twitter, but I post more updates here that are channel focused in my community section. So Please check there if you have any questions or want to know what's going on. But for tonight, Mashed, I'm glad to see you. It's been real great seeing you again. Glance, I always appreciate your interaction and you being here in the chat room. Umberto, I don't know if you're still here, but if you are here, thank you so much for dropping in, my friend. It's always great seeing you, and you've always been very supportive of me when I stream live. Um, so, all right. Well, let's go ahead and call it a night. Anyone that I missed, if I missed you, thank you for being here in the chat, and even if you're lurking, if you came in and lurked, or you're currently lurking, or you had to leave early, I appreciate you guys being here. Even if you are just curious about what I'm talking about, I appreciate it. I really do. You guys, we finally pushed over 1,000 channel subscribers. I haven't. I'll be honest, I haven't really been working on that. It hadn't been a high priority to me, but the last couple of weeks we pushed over it, and I felt really proud of myself, and I'm happy that there's a lot of people out there that found my content either interesting or oh, sorry. I was just wondering why the screen changed so drastically. It's because of the candlesticks readjusting. Okay, I was like, wow, what happened? we suddenly had the big drop, or what? No, okay, we're good. But yeah, I'm glad that we finally eclipsed 1,000. Unfortunately, I need at least another 3,000 viewer hours for my channel to get monetized. So that's not a big priority for me, but because we're only like at 506 hours, so it's not a priority for me. But hey, if we hit it someday, that's cool. If we don't, me doing stock trading on AnyColor and Cover Corporation, that's what funds my channel and my content. That's my primary way of funding what I do. And that's good enough for me. I don't want to take anybody's money, or beg people to donate to me. That's why I never do it. Or I don't try to say, hey, look, I made merch, why don't you buy my merch, man? No, I don't want to take your money. I just want you to be here if you want to be here. That's it. So yeah, thank you everyone that dropped in. Again, I apologize for me being late. I really do. I apologize. But yeah, thank you so much for being here with me live, or if you watched the VOD, or if you're lurking, thank you so much. You guys have a great morning, afternoon, or evening, whatever it is for you. This is Marko Yamashita signing off. Peace, guys. Thank you.